turn our Bibles to Romans 10, starting on verse 5. We last 2 weeks we talked about the new humanity, and we mentioned a lot in that discussion how prejudice was removed, walls division. So let's talk about that a little bit more. How human divisions were abolished in Jesus Christ. Let's start with the word of faith. Romans 10 verse 5. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it verse 5? Oh, verse 5. For Moses writes that the man who practices righteousness, which is based on law, shall live by that righteousness. Now, this passage, by the way, is what Christians are a little bit puzzled. And this is where the Jews hold on to. Because it says there that if you want to live by the righteousness of Moses, live by it. But the righteousness based on faith speaks as follows. Do not say in your heart, who will ascend into heaven, that is, to bring Christ down, or who will descend into the abyss, that is, to bring Christ up from the dead. But what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith which we are preaching. That if you confess with your mouth, now this is the word of faith now as Paul is summarizing it. Now today, the word of faith movement has focused their concentrations on prosperity and all of those nice blessings. But here the word of faith is actually defined. The word of faith which we are preaching, that if you, this is the word of faith that they are preaching, that if you confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart a person believes, resulting in righteousness, and with the mouth he confesses, resulting in salvation. For the scripture says, whoever believes in him will not be disappointed. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord is Lord of all, abounding in riches for all who call on him. For whoever will call on the name of the Lord will be saved. You know, in today's world, I don't know if we belong to that classification, people most of the time wants to be left alone. They wanted to live any way they want, and also they wanted to feel righteous in the way that they want. So this is subjectivism. The humanity or the person, the self, becomes the main focus or source of any kind of standard. I'll do whatever I want for as long as I feel good about it and I feel right about it. You know. Therefore, righteousness is something that becomes very difficult to understand because, for example, what is righteous among Americans 100 years ago is no longer righteous today. That's American standard. What they call is right back then is no longer right today. You know, back in the times of Nikita Khrushchev with Kennedy, the U.S. is pretty much against communism, against socialism, against Russia. But now, U.S. is embracing socialism. Okay, so now what was righteous back then is no longer righteous now. What was wrong back then is no longer wrong today. And this is okay for most. For however you want to feel, that becomes the standard. Same thing with Filipinos. What we hold to be the standard from 50 years ago is no longer being held today. You know, we laughed before at the Americans and the Europeans for having a divorce law because Philippines is predominantly Catholic. So we laugh at that. But now even the Catholics have none almost. If they have very little problem with divorce. And the Pope that they have right now, of course, have no problem with discussing the ordination of nuns to become priestesses and the inclusion of the homosexual community. So what was right then is not necessarily right now. That's what you call subjectivity. So, in the past, going back to the ancient world, when you talk about being righteous before God, say you are a Roman, or you are a Scythian, or you are a Babylonian, or an Egyptian, when you say stand right before God, what does it mean? You see, they have a different set of standards. Well, what it means is you can bribe God. I don't know if you have seen that movie. No, I forgot that movie. It's about Egypt. The gods of Egypt were fighting, something like that. And at the end, this God who prevailed was setting a new standard. Now you don't have to pay gold, something like that. You just have to be good to people. Well, because that is the standard of righteousness before. For you to become righteous before your God, false God, you can bribe your God. You can bring gold to the afterlife, and then you will buy your passage to heaven, something like that. Not only can you bribe your God, you can make gods fight each other, like the gods of Mount Olympus. They oppose each other. They fight each other. It's a family fight. Basically, Zeus, I think, locked up or killed his dad, and now later on, his children are against him, his wives are against him, and so that becomes a standard of righteousness. If you want to become righteous before your God, you can bribe your God. Now, if you can pay the priest, if you can tell the priest, look the other way or bless me, you still become righteous. The Catholics adopted that. I mean, if you can pay you can basically pay your way to heaven in the Roman Catholic practice. Martin Luther, if you can watch that live of Martin Luther, wherein he was already bothered by his faith because of the immorality and the drunkenness and the carousing that is going on in Germany. One night he was going to his parish, and he saw this member of his church drunk. And he was always chiding that guy. And the guy held out a paper from the Pope saying, Father Martin, I'm okay. For 1 year, he said. Because they were trying to, I think, renovate the Vatican. And so the Pope was trying to raise a lot of money. And that becomes very scandalous during those days. So basically, you can pay your priest and you can be forgiven. That's indulgences and all of those penance that you can make. And even today, that is happening. So the doctrine that you can bribe God is still there. To be righteous. To be righteous. I was reading one mafia book, and the guy was indicted in New York, and so he was about to go for life, and he will be executed perhaps, but either life term or execution. But he has cancer. And so he has few days before he can, because he was trial, couple of days before he can go to the court and report for his jail term. Well, one of the places he visited was their parish church, their parish. And he talked to his priest and said, Father, I'm going out and I think I'm going to go die in jail because the sentence that I was convicted in requires multiple years of jail term. And so the priest says, well, son, you gotta, this and that. And then he said, well, Father, I'm gonna die in jail. I know I'm gonna go to purgatory, but I want to make sure that I am taken care of in eternity. Please make sure that masses are held on my behalf. And the parish priest said, we can do that. By the way, you know that our church needs new roof. And it needs some repair. And the mafioso boss said, don't worry about it, Father. That's taken care of. Then I'll make sure that masses and prayers are offered on your behalf. I was reading that and I said, this is how they They converted the ancient pagan doctrines and incorporated in the church. And we do the same thing today. You know, right now we are trying to raise money for our blessing center in the Philippines. Do not, if you're giving towards that, do not even entertain in your head that because you're giving, you're going to have some extended stay in heaven or something, or you will have a special deal. No, there's none. These are works of faith that we are doing. It has nothing to do with our salvation. You see? But which means in the other religions, you can earn your righteousness. Well, Moses said basically, well, if you live by the law and the righteous requirements of the law, you can go to heaven. That's basically what it is. What's the use of God giving His law if when you have completed the law and fulfill it, you're not going to go to heaven? What's the use? But the problem is this. The problem is nobody was able to fulfill the law, including the lawgiver named Moses. You know, nobody was able to fulfill the law. In fact, in modern times, I think it's Kenneth Twist or Phillips who wrote, you know, a husband of one wife, and he extended, or Vincent. Vincent, in his commentary, said that this is so solid that even if your wife or spouse dies, you're not supposed to remarry. Now, I disagree with that, but that is the extent. He said this is the weight of this command, that you only belong to one person, you see. But it is so far off now from where we're living right now. So if we want to be righteous and earn our righteousness, then follow the law. You know, follow everything that is in there. And the Moses says you can be righteous. However, we know that nobody was able to fulfill that. So in the light of that, the division of people, I told you, the Jews look at Jews, Gentiles, God-fearers, and proselytes, okay? So basically there are three main groups. You have Jews, you have and Gentiles. But then the church was born. So now you have Christians. Now Christians is an interesting group, because when Christianity was born, we were under Judaism. Our leaders were Jews. So we were worshiping in the temple of Herod. That's how where Peter, Solomon's colonnade. Paul will visit synagogues where Jews are. And when they go on missions, they look for Jews. That's why the doctrine to the Jews first. They will look for Jews. And what do you find when you find Jewish practices? So it's always going back to that. So Christians, when we were established in the first century, we were under Judaism. But Paul was so offensive to the Jews that they hated Paul. And so they decided finally that we became a cult of Judaism until they kick us out, you know. So that is what happened. So now you have Jews, Christians, and Gentiles. But if you look at the scriptures, God is looking at only two kinds of people. It's not a Jew or a Gentile, but either you're a believer or an unbeliever. That's the two classifications God looks at. So now the issue is this: who is righteous before God? If there is a Jew right now who says, I am fulfilling the law, is he unrighteous? Or is he righteous? Well, we already established that nobody is able to fulfill the law. Now, if you cannot fulfill the law, you have to look for other means. Let's look at Leviticus 18, verse 5. I'll show you where it was coming from. Leviticus 18, verse 5. So you shall keep my statutes and my judgments, by which a man may live. If he does them, I am the Lord. You will keep my statutes and my judgment, by which a man may live. Let me ask you this. How does a just live? By faith, right? But here the way God defines it is, if you live by my statutes and my command, that's how you shall live. So for God, living by faith is living by His Word. That's why we say the word of faith is the word of salvation. Now, remember that from what we read, Romans is New Testament. And so, it is obvious now that there is nobody who is able to live by the law. Therefore, nobody is righteous. Now, if nobody can live by the law and you want to live righteous, you have to find other means. You know, if you are traveling wherever you're going and the road is blocked, but you still need to go home. So how do you get there? You see, I don't know if you have ever been stranded. I had a flight one time, and boy, there was Mardi Gras in New Orleans. I was caught in that. There was a storm first, and then all the flights are canceled, and I have a connecting flight. I forgot what city I will be landing, and I said, I called my wife, and my wife says, I said, Aunt, can you find me a hotel if I don't, the storm, I said, if I can't fly out, can you find me a hotel? And immediately she checked, she said, no hotels. I said, what am I going to do, sleep in the airport? And so I went to the ticket booth and asked, when is the next flight available? Like a couple of days before there's a seat for me. I said, that's not right. So they were telling me, sir, what do you want? Your flight is canceled. Do you want to do the following? I said, wait. I decided, I said, I went to the car rental because this is my style. I don't want to go to the airport on time. My wife doesn't want to go to the airport on time either. She wants to go there late, you know. But I want to be ahead of time. Now, I have something like 5 hours to spare. So I went to the car rental and I said, how many hours to the next city? And they said, well, sir, you're going to have to drive for 2.5 hours. I said, well, I can catch the flight. So I look if there is a car rental, and there was, I canceled the flight and rushed to the airport. My flight was canceled again. You know, but the point is this, because I could not go to the home using the original route because of the typhoon and the Mardi Gras, I have to find another route. Actually, my third try is what got me into a flight that took me to 2 different cities, and then I was able to find my flight and find my way back home. But that is a simple thing. It's just going home. But what about going to God? If God gave us the law and nobody can follow the law, look, we are born-again Christians. Let me ask you this. The commandments of the Lord, can you honestly say that in the New Testament command that you are able to follow everything that Jesus said? I mean, can any here say, everything that Jesus said, I obeyed? That's a simple question, but very, very hard to answer. Because if we are, then we will readily say, yes, amen. But we are, I did not do that. Oh, I did not do that. You see? So there has to be another way that we can find so that we can be righteous before God. And the answer to that is Jesus Christ. Again, let me read to you Romans 10:5 and analyze what that means. For Moses writes that the man who practices the righteousness which is based on the law shall live by that righteousness. This is what that verse is teaching us. Number one, it is the hopeless nature of our attempts to gain righteous standing before God on the basis of what we do. There is nothing that you and I can do, will do, and will ever do that will make us right before God. It's just hopeless. I mean, you might as well give up. If you think, well, I'm going to have, this is what, then, this is December 9? Okay. This is December 9. We have few more days before our New Year's festivities. I don't know if you are writing your New Year's resolution. I stopped writing that thing, you know. I don't make New Year's resolution anymore for decades, I think, because I violate them all the time. You know, so if you look at that and you begin to say, well, it's hopeless. There is the flesh well, we are attached to our flesh, of course, but the flesh has been weakened so much by sin. There is really this inclination to sin, even if we are born again. The Spirit is the one that got born again, but not the flesh. You see, not the flesh. I was talking to. Did you hear the testimony of Bishop Red this morning? He was giving me more details. He said when he collapsed, he said, I was in the hospital for 10 days. He said I thought I was gonna die. He said I woke up after some time, and he said everybody in the room was crying. His children that were there, they were crying. The leaders that were, they were crying. So he really thought he was gonna die. You know, and so he said, you know, what will you do if you are a person of faith? In Jesus' name I'll be healed. He said, different thing came out of my mouth. He said, I begin to complain. Now he's a righteous man, but he said, I begin to tell God, I pray for the sick and they get healed. I'm not going to die like it. And he even told me this. I guess because he was teaching, he doesn't want to share it, but I'll share it because it's not my testimony anyways, you know. So he said, Lord, I don't want to die of sickness. Maybe I should die of an accident. That's what he said. He said, but not sickness. He said, I don't want to die of sickness because I pray for people to get healed. And what will they say? So he said, maybe I should die of an accident. And he told me, he said, I was complaining. You see? Because really, the flesh has this inclination to sin. Because what was born again was our spirits. The second thing is this. In light of what we read from Leviticus, it seems like obeying the law is totally hopeless. You will just fall short. And no matter what you do, you will fall short. By the way, it happens in I think in all of our relationships, if we will be honest. Husband and the wife fought, and the husband or the wife says, I'm gonna be obedient, I'm gonna be submissive. You know, the wife will say this, and the husband will say, well, I'm gonna be more loving. I'll be willing to die for you or to give my life for you. That's to mend the relationship. After they hug and kiss, what happened? They go at it again. We always fall short. A child will offend the parents, and right after the forgiveness is given, will offend the parents again. You know, it's the doctrine of sin. This thing, I think we don't fully understand it yet. But the nature of the fall has changed the course of our lives so much. So, because of that, if we will have the honesty and say, Lord, I cannot even fulfill my own promises to myself. Did you guys ever make a promise to yourself? You say, well, I'm going to be good to myself. You have your own personal life practices that will change you. I'm gonna read my Bible every day. I'm gonna pray every day. I'm gonna eat right. Some of you will say, I'm gonna exercise. You know, my wife has had that New Year's resolution. I will exercise. Well, she's doing it right now. She was telling me the other day that she can do 10 minutes now, right? She started with 1 minute and then it became 2 minutes. Now she's 10 minutes. I don't know how often she does it, but avoid that flesh. And she will tell you stories that when she was single, almost every night, right? She said, every night I will exercise in my room. And she said, I will even put on my workout outfit. You're in your house, in your room. And she will put on her work. She said, because of her asthma condition, right? Because of her asthma condition, she has to do that. She was telling me this almost every day in her room. She will be exercising. Yeah. I don't see her doing that in the house. Yeah. But she will always have that promise. And she will, of course, have the reasons, the business and everything else. But those are good promises to self. But even our good promises to ourselves, we are not capable of fulfilling. And how many of you promise to yourself, I'm going to give myself good rest? You don't rest. I'm gonna give myself a break. You don't give yourself a break. Even our promises to ourselves, we break. Therefore, if that is our honest conclusion, then we hold our hands up high and we say, I admit, I can't do it on my own. Therefore, I have to find another solution. And the only solution is Jesus Christ. Therefore, that passage in Leviticus, let me read to you. So you shall keep my statutes and my judgments by which a man may live. If he does them, I am the Lord. You know, the other solution that is this. What the Bible points us this, because we can't do it, we need to find a representative man who will do it for us. And so Leviticus 10:5 was still fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Jesus lived by the law. The Bible says he fulfilled all the requirements of the law. He did everything by the book. He did not violate anything. And when we put our faith in Jesus, he became our representative. We know the idea of representative. We are a representative government. You know, we elect government officials. The moment somebody wins, whether we like their decisions or not, or accomplishments, they become ours. And, you know, for example, when the stock market started soaring under Trump, it doesn't matter if liberals and some conservatives don't like Trump, they still enjoy the benefit. There's still jobs available. You know, it doesn't matter if they don't like the way Trump is dealing with Mexico or Canada or China. Whatever benefits will be gained by those negotiations, Americans will still benefit. Now, in the same manner, even if you don't, say for example, right now, we have in this January, we have a Democrat lower house. It doesn't matter if you voted for Democrats and really believe what they believe, if they do something that will not benefit the country, it will also not benefit you. Because that's a representative government. You cannot say, well, I don't like the decision of the representatives. I'm not going to live by that. No, you'll go to jail. I mean, whatever tax can you imagine the Democrats are complaining because Trump lowered the taxes? Nobody's returning their money. Because you can donate to IRS. Nobody's saying, well, I believe I should pay 35%. He cut it to 21%. I'm giving the other 40. Nobody was doing that. But they can do that. Because whether you like it or not, you will enjoy the benefits and you will suffer the negatives. Now, Jesus becomes our representative man. And so whatever benefits he gained, whatever righteousness he gained, it became ours. I don't know how God came up with this simple process, but that makes salvation or righteousness very simple. You put your faith in Jesus. And the moment you put your faith in Jesus, then you can be saved. How did God accomplish this? He made it simple. He decided he will put the word of faith in our hearts, very close, even in our mouth. So can you imagine this? Every Christian, even unbelievers, the word of faith is very close to them already, in their hearts, even in their mouth. Now, it is very close. That is like you're hungry and you want to eat, and there is this fruit-bearing tree that you can eat, and it's within your reach. You will just pick it. It's very close, very near. That's the word of faith. Brother Willie was telling me that in Taiwan, the Taiwanese farmers came here, and they like our mangoes. And they said, yeah, but your mangoes are big. The mango trees are big. The Taiwanese said, mango trees are big, high. And they said, there must be a better way of doing this, because you have to hire personnel to climb up and you know, a lot of work. And Brother Willie told me that in Taiwan, the one who harvests their mangoes, old people. Because what they did is they made it simpler. They do not allow the mangoes to grow tall. I know how they do it, but they'll prune it that it's within reach. Said old people, when the mangoes are ready for picking, you have old people in the mango orchard, and they can reach it. They make the mangoes short. It's not dwarf mango. It's just they made it. They won't allow it to have tall branches, and they'll just pick it like that. He said they'll just keep picking whole day. Old people. You don't need ladders. Just picking them. Made it simple. It's within your reach. You know, the word of faith is within the reach of everybody. Have you noticed? Try doing this. You start witnessing to somebody. I don't care if they reject it, you've got their attention. There is something about salvation, righteousness, that is very close to a person's heart. You want to live right. Nobody will say no. It's very close. You want to do right. You don't even have to say Jesus. You want to live right. Of course I want to live right. You want to do right. Of course. It's very close. You know? Very close. So God did not make it difficult for people to get saved. That's the word of faith that we should be preaching. That's why Paul is saying, this is the word of faith that we preach. Of course, when you stop preaching that, when you go back to paganism and begin to say, well, do the following things, you earn this, you do that, then you're going back to false religion. The moment we act on this word of faith, it transforms our lives. Look at this, Deuteronomy 8:17. Otherwise, you may say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand made this wealth. Now that passage is about after they were blessed. Now this is what happened. This is what happens to people of faith. So we have nothing. You know, we are strapped. We are bankrupt. And we begin to ask God for blessing. Lord, bless me, like the people of Israel, they were suffering in Egypt. Lord, deliver us from the Egyptians. Let us go to the promised land. And the Lord brought them there. And they were scared. Every little thing, they were scared. Is there not enough cemetery in Egypt that we should be dying in the wilderness? Oh, we're all going to die. They faced the Red Sea, and God parted the Red Sea. We're hungry. God rained manna. We want meat. God sent quails. We're thirsty. God gave them water. Everything. Enemies came. Moses raised his hands, and they will win. And then God said this. When you enter the promised land, you will harvest from where you have not planted. You will live in houses that you did not build. When that happens, he said, I want you to come before my presence. And this is what tithing is. I want you to come before my presence. And says, here I am. We were slaves in Egypt, and God blessed us and prospered us. So we come and bring this gift, the tithes and offering. Tithes and offering is to honor the fact that it is not by your hands that you have the ability to make wealth. But then pride comes in. The pride that comes in and begin to say, oh, I did it on my own. I did it on my own. You know, I was looking at, I like college ball more than professional ball, you know. The purity of the game is in the college ball. If you look at the college players, you can look at basketball or football. You look at these football players, they have humility. They still have, because they want to be drafted by the NFL or by the NBA. They obey the coaches. A lot of coaches says they would love to coach in the college ball because they have control. People obey, you know, and there are rules that they really follow. And so they were taught the skills. They were polished. They were trained. But the moment they go to the professional league, have you noticed the level of pride just transforms overnight? Suddenly this guy who was poor yesterday, now suddenly signing a multi-million-dollar contract with $2 million signing bonus, and he forgot about all of that. And the humility is gone. And you ask during the interviews, the one that is being put on the center is self. I don't know if you remember the championship game the other year between, I forgot what team was that, Mayfield, I think, in Alabama, Ohio, and Alabama. Who is Joseph? Who's the player? Tagovailoa, something like that. Huh? Yeah, Tua. When he was interviewed, because he replaced the quarterback in the second half, he said, my parents are going to be upset with this. And then he started giving glory to God. I heard that. I said, this is a Christian family. He said, oh, my parents will be, my dad will be very upset with what I'm about to say. But he said, I give glory to Jesus Christ. I owe him everything. His parents are Christians, but he said, my parents are going to be upset with this. You know why his parents are going to be upset with that? Because he may not land in a lucrative contract because he mentioned Jesus Christ. You know, he was the front runner of the Heisman race. They say that he lost it because he talks about Jesus too much. This guy is a phenomenal guy. But they say he lost it because he talks about Jesus. Now, whether that is true or not, that changes things. Because the moment we achieve what we were begging God for, then we begin to say, well, according to Deuteronomy 8:17, well, otherwise you may say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand made me this wealth. We go back to self-elevation. This is basically what the temptation is. It's called pride. It's called conceit. And this is where a lot of believers fall into after they receive tremendous blessings. What happened? The word of faith is abolished. The word of faith is, embracing the word of faith is embracing the fact that you cannot earn this by your own hands. That you, I mean, you know, you can say, well, that guy is super talented. But listen, there's a lot of super talented people, very smart people that didn't make it. Yeah, they just don't. I heard that there is even a university now, a high school, not a university. I think it's in Kansas. A high school, very competitive high school, but the concentration is basketball. That if you have the potential, the moment you're admitted in that high school, their biggest training is in the development of your athleticism. Because they are hoping, and they say, people who went there said, we thought we know basketball, but the things that they are teaching us there is phenomenal. It will protect you, it will keep you healthy, your diet, high school, so that when you go to college, you are prepared for the NCAA. Now, you see, you humble yourself at high school, and then you get drafted in the NBA. Suddenly, things change. Oh, this is my own skills, this and that. Things changes. In Christianity, that's the same temptation. But that is one of the ways by which Jesus abolished division. Nobody can say that they earn their salvation by their own skills. Not even the Jews. They cannot say, well, we have the law. Yeah, but you did not follow the law. Not even the Christians. The Christians can say, well, we have the fulfillment of the law under Jesus Christ. But are we following everything that Jesus is saying? So really, you cannot brag. You cannot say, well, I'm more spiritual than you are. How can you be more spiritual than somebody else? That puts us in the same page. The other thing that abolishes division is our calling. Let me read to you 1 Corinthians 7, verse 17. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 17. Only as the Lord has assigned to each one, as God has called each, in this manner let him walk. And so I direct in all the churches, was any man called when he was already circumcised? He is not to become uncircumcised. Has anyone been called in uncircumcision? He is not to be circumcised. Circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing. But what matters is the keeping of the commandments of God. Each man must remain in the condition in which he was called. Were you called while a slave, do not worry about it. But if you are able also to become free, rather do that. For he who was called in the Lord while a slave, is the Lord's freedman. Likewise, he who was called while free is Christ's slave. You were bought with a price. Do not become slaves of men. Brothers, each one is to remain with God in that condition in which he was called. This is God's call to us to spiritual contentment. Say contentment. Contentment is hard to achieve. I think especially if you are very competitive, But this is spiritual contentment. Each one are keywords to the thought on that passage. Division always takes place when we don't understand these two words. Each one. Each one has a call. I have a call, you guys have a call. Each one is expected to walk according to their call. And our call is to remain with God in whatever condition you find yourselves. That means there are no conditions outside of us that should determine who we are and what we do. Okay? The Jews will be circumcised on the 8th day, and it's the mark of the covenant. But then they were taken captive by the Babylonians, by the Assyrians, by the Romans. So what happened is in those days they have public bathhouses. Well, public bathhouses are gyms. You know what the word gym is. The meaning of the word gym itself means naked. You go in there naked. Well, the problem is this. If you are Jewish and you're going to go to the gym, boy, you are circumcised. So they begin to taunt the Jews. So they begin to do some procedure to uncircumcise themselves. I mean, you remove the foreskin. What are you going to do? Do they have plastic surgery or something? But do they have silicone in those days already? But they will do something so that it will appear like you are not circumcised. Why? Because the men will mock you. Are you circumcised? So they begin to say, I need to do something so that I will be uncircumcised. They say it was a very painful procedure. Now you are a Gentile in the New Testament. You get born again. Well, you get born again. You are among Christians. Okay? Why did it become an issue? Because Christians go to the bathhouses together. Now remember, bathhouses are a cultural thing. They really go there. Not only bathhouses, but latrines. Those are public place, And so now you are a Gentile and you become a Christian, and you are with the Jews, and you are going to the bathhouse with them. Now the Jewish Christians will say, "Oh, you're not circumcised." So the Gentiles become insecure. First, the Jews became insecure and say, "Well, I'm circumcised. I will I will remove the mark of circumcision," or something like that. And then the Gentiles who get born again says, "Well, I'm not circumcised. Shall I be circumcised?" So it become an issue. So if you are a Gentile Christian who got born again and you are not circumcised, the Jews will say, "Well, this is the mark of the covenant." And the Gentiles who got circumcised says, "Yeah, I follow that." So you feel insecure. It's like us. You go to the church and someone says, "Do you sing in the choir?" No. Well, if you love the Lord, you will sing in the choir. Now, it's like joining in the choir becomes the mark. Well, how many times do you attend the service per week? I attend 5 times per week. Well, how could that be? There are only 3 possible services. Well, I attend the youth, and I attend a Bible study. So I have 5 meetings a week. So the other people who don't attend all these meetings become feeling insecure. Oh, I'm not as spiritual. You see, that's the feeling. I'm not as spiritual. That's what happened. Now, you go to the prosperity movement. Are you born again? Are you a manager now? No, I'm not. I'm still a, whatever your job is. I'm a floor manager, you know. I don't have an office. So you begin to feel insecure. How come they're being promoted and I'm not being promoted? How come they're living in nice houses or they're living in... So this produces insecurity, you see. That's why the issue of circumcision. But from what Paul is saying is this: because of our call, the words each one, that means none of us should determine who we are and what we do on the base of outside circumstances. Look, there is nothing that I can do about the fact that I was born in the Philippines. I got born again, but there is nothing that I can do about that. Not only was I born in the Philippines, my parents are Filipinos. There is nothing that I can do about that. The color of my skin is the color of my skin. There is nothing that I can do about that. There is a movie, Denzel Washington, Malcolm X, when he was trying to color his hair, and he was trying to straighten it. And then, of course, they're doing something with their skin so it will become lighter skin. You know why? That's insecurity. A person doesn't feel good about who they are. You see? And it's a big issue nowadays. They just don't feel good about it. This is the same thing that Jews and Gentiles were feeling when they get born again. That's why Paul said, if you are a slave, well, if you can get free, do it. But you're a freed man in Christ. By the way, if you are not a slave, you are a slave of Christ. If you are circumcised, no problem. If you are not circumcised, you don't have to be circumcised. You see that? What Paul is saying is, you don't have to be what others are. You just need to be, you need to feel your security in Jesus Christ, not in what others are, not in patterning after what others are. You see, we like to be everybody else. Because this Michael Jordan was being interviewed. He was being asked, who can possibly beat you in basketball? He said, probably Kobe Bryant. He was like, why? He said, because he copied all my moves. He said, so he can probably beat me. Because he copied all my moves. Which means that, boy, I like to be like that. You know. Some people have different hobbies. If you are a singer, whom do you want to be like? Do you want to sing like Pavarotti or Andrea Bocelli or Elvis Presley? You know why we want that? Because we are not so secure with our voices. We don't think our voices is good enough. Now that may be a minor thing, but essentially even in Christianity it's the same thing. We don't believe in our calling. Our calling should give us security, and if this person is doing his job, I should be happy about that. If this person is fulfilling school, not that I would desire to do whatever everybody else is doing. This means that there are no conditions outside of ourselves that should determine who we are and what we are. Why is it? Because what defines us are not our circumstances. There's nothing that we can do about it, really. If you are, DJ was telling me because I was standing here when Pastor David Lerena was testifying. Boy, he is short. Did you know that? Boy, he's short. I don't know if he's shorter, him or his dad, but these are short people. The girl is taller, I think, Leah. But you listen to them. I don't see any insecurity in their heights. I mean, they jump higher than me. When Bishop Ray said, what was he saying? You jump out of your seat. I was saying, what do you jump? I'm having difficulty standing up. So when he said, jump, okay, you jump. I'll just take my time. The guy is 74 years old. He can still jump a little bit. He commands respect in the Philippines. He's got the best reputation among ministers, Filipino ministers in the U.S. Bishop Ray Lerena. That short guy. You know, when he was testifying, I have to look down like, I cannot go lower. And I feel tall beside him, you know. But the guy has, you know, when his wife died, Bishop Ray Lerena, he was telling me stories about how other women were fighting to get him. They were literally going after him because this guy oozes with confidence in Christ. But if you look at his back, the guy is not even educated. We were telling stories years ago. He was not even educated. But he found his confidence in God. So, what defines us are not the events around us. We cannot do anything about it. We cannot do anything about it. What defines us is our thoughts. Okay? Look at this. Proverbs 23, verse 7. I'm not just making up these words. Okay? It's in Proverbs 23, verse 7. It says here, for as he thinks within himself, so is he. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So it doesn't say, as a man is born in a race or in a family, so is he. But as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. He says to you, eat and drink, but his heart is not with you. You see, that's why this is the hypocrisy. You want to eat, but actually he doesn't want to offer food to you. He's just being polite. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Okay. Hey, you want to eat, but I was saying it, you want to eat? So it looks generous, right? But I'm not generous. Because I'm thinking in my heart, I hope she says no. I really don't want to share my food. Now, what, for example, if she is so hungry and she decide to eat my food, did it make me generous? No. Because in my heart, when I offer her food, I was telling my heart, I hope she says no. But she was very hungry. She said yes. She ate the food. It did not make me hospitable. It did not make me generous. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, that means you can say something else, but if your heart is not there, it doesn't make you that. Okay, you can say, well, you know, I'm going to serve God with everything I've got. I hope, in my head I said, I hope nobody's listening. I hope. Oh. As a man thinking in his heart, so is he. You see? That's where it was taken from. So it's not the events in our lives. There's nothing that we can do about our birth. We have no choice as to who our parents were. I mean, we have no choice over ours. We even have no choice over who are going to be our kids. You know? If I can chisel my kids to my liking, I'll chisel Joseph a lot, you know. There's a lot of things I'll change in Joseph. So it will be according to my liking. I'll chisel John a lot, so he will be according to my liking. I'll chisel DJ a lot, so she will be according to my liking. But we are born with our children. And that gives us, it gives us a level of humility. Even our spouses, I'm going to marry this boy or this girl, and these are your expectations. You get married, you found out, you are hallucinating, you know. Because goodbye with your expectations. You will have some, but you will not have all. And so some people have regrets and they don't know how to deal with it. But there's nothing that you can do about these events, really. Nothing that you can do about these events. Filipinos are known for, my wife has a term for that, baklas. The passport, they buy U.S. visas. They changed the passport system now. They'll get a Filipino passport with a U.S. visa stamped on it, and they will change the picture. Yeah. Peter was telling me yesterday, in poor countries, there's less work, so they have plenty of time in their hands to come up with these ideas. so, boy, we have Filipinos who fly to South America. One of our members here before says, transit visa to the U.S. He came here. When there was no guards, he ran out. And that's how he made it here to the U.S. Can you imagine all of these things? If you are born on parents like that, there's nothing that you can do about that. Really. There's really nothing. Mexico is known right now for, and South America for their cartels. Now, can you imagine the amount of news that are going about Mexico, the negative news? Huh? If you are Mexican, then you will be identified. There's nothing that you can do about it. Even if he has not killed a fly, they look at you, Mexican, oh, did he swim in the Rio Grande? Well, maybe he doesn't even know how to swim. But there's nothing that you can do about it. That's like, there's nothing I can do about my accent. There's nothing I can do about my color, my birth. There's nothing, there's a lot of things that we can do anything about. Therefore, events should not determine who you are, but what you allow in your mind. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So one of the greatest source of discontent on our part is the thought that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. One of the biggest deception is when people are talking and they say, I wish you are my brother. Or I wish you have, I have you for my sister. I wish your parents are my parents. That's one of the biggest deception there is. Because you have no idea what you're talking about. Because my kids are disciplined, sometimes I receive comments that says, DJ is a good girl, very smart. I wish I have DJ as my daughter. How? Don't wish that. You don't know DJ. You don't know how expensive she is. No, she is good for me. People say, look, Pastor said Joseph is very responsible. You don't know Joseph. I don't even know if you can handle Joseph, that boy there. Sometimes I want to hit him with a baseball bat or something, But there's nothing that you can do about that. And so when we make comments like that, it's actually this idea that the grass is always greener on the other side of the pasture. But each of us are born with certain events that we have no control of. So if you base your confidence or satisfaction or contentment in those things, too bad, you're not going to have them. But you can change the way you think. That's why you have to renew your mind. You see? That's why you have to renew your mind. When my wife is angry with me, she'll tell me, I don't know why I married you, she will say that. I don't know kung bakit kita pinagtsatsagaan. I don't know how to say that in English. I don't know kung bakit kita pinagtsatsagaan. And I will answer her back, I don't know also. But she is born with that, she woke up with that circle. She has this idea of what I will be as a husband. She thought I will do all the dishes all the time. She thought I will clean the house every day. I don't know where she got this idea. She was hallucinating when she was single, because she got into an accident, so I helped them clean the house in New York. She was in an accident. She could hardly walk. What do you want me to do? Have her mop the floor. But she is healed. So she has to do what healed people do. Clean the house. You know? But she has this expectation. And she is so frustrated. I don't know how many times she'll tell me, I thought you're going to be doing some of these things. I said, well, you thought wrong. You know? Because I'm thinking differently. And the Bible says, a man thinks in his heart, so is he. I don't think that way. You see? So if we keep basing our contentment on the events around us, we will never be content. But if we base our contentment on the calling that we have, if my thumb will say, I'm always exposed, I wish I can walk. Oh, you are wrong. The thumb has no strength to carry the weight of my whole body. It doesn't have the strength. And so sometimes when you say, well, I wish I'm the worship leader. That's what you wish. Try to be a worship leader when you cannot carry a tune. I know when Daniel Gadalian was here as our choir director, I know how many times he complained to me. I'm not going to tell you whom he complained about. Some of you are still here, you know. I don't want to offend anybody here. You know. Daniel will tell me, hey, Pastor, can you please help me? I said, why? Oh, this choir member has got to go. I said, you're the director. Oh, I cannot do that. I said, why? What is it? Oh, every time I look at that person, he said, I lose the concentration, you know. And he tells me some of the actuations of some of the choir members, and I laugh. Pastor, can you please help me? I said, no, I'm not a choir director. That's not my job. I'm happy. Now, do I ever wish that I'll conduct the choir? No. I never wish that. That's why when I took my fundamentals of music, I passed the first one, and the second one, I will be taught how to conduct the choir. So our music director says, you qualified, you passed music 1. You need to take music 2 because a pastor, when you have no choir director, you have to conduct the choir. I said, no, I'm not taking it. And they asked me, what do you mean? I said, well, if there's no choir director in the church that I will pastor, we have no choir. I resolved that decades ago. Because I'll be more, can you imagine me conducting the choir? I can't even imagine me. What will I do? Maybe I will draw. Yeah. I can't imagine myself doing that. But I'm happy doing my ministry. I'm happy doing what I believe God calls me to do. That's the contentment. When you think that your neighbor's wife is prettier or your neighbor's husband is more handsome, you're in a big trouble. You have to be happy and content with what you have. Ang bagal ng amin talaga. May delayed reaction. Ay, nako. When we don't have this attitude, this is where covetousness and jealousy gets its feeding. Yeah. Covetousness and jealousy, it gets feeding. Some even think that if they are just in a different set of circumstances, they would be a better Christian. Oh, Pastor say, I don't know how many pastors have told me this. If I have the books that you have, maybe I can do the same thing. I said, no, you can't. So what do you mean? Well, I started doing seminars before I have those books. Well, Pastor say, perhaps if I have the education that you have, I can do the seminars that you're doing right now. I said, no, you won't. Why? Because I've been doing those seminars before I get my master's. Yeah. I've been doing those. I'm happy with that. You see? But we always use that as an excuse for living discontented life. Yeah. For living discontent. I know how many husbands will tell me, oh, pastors in the Philippines, because I will brag about my wife. Oh, pastor, say you're blessed because Sister Anne is your wife. And so I will look at them and say, why, you don't feel blessed because she's not your wife? I said, then you're going to live an unblessed life for the rest of your life. Because she's not going to be your wife. You know, for some people, their ears will clap. Oh, that's a wrong clap. Because Anna's not going to be your wife. Oh, you're blessed because sister. And then they'll say, well, Sister Anne, you know, your kids are disciplined because you're blessed, because Pastor says disciplinarian. Try to ask Anne when she's at her low point, if she's blessed, I am her husband. She may say differently. You know. You need to learn how to be content with whatever you have. That's what it is. It's not that I'll be happy with being poor or being sick. That's not what it means. Be happy, be content with your call. If God calls you while you are uncircumcised, that means as far as He is concerned, you're good enough. So why be circumcised? If God called me as a Filipino, that's good enough. That means I don't have to be an American. You see that? If God calls me before I got advanced education, that means that was good enough already. You see what I'm saying? Because He called me in whatever state I was in. God did not say, well, I'm going to wait for this guy to be married with Anne or to have his doctorate before I will call him. He did not wait for that. I was good enough. Because my ability to fulfill my call is totally based on His anointing, on my life, on the gifts that He gives me. But a lot of people will, that's why we waste a lot of money, because we are so discontented. A lot of what we do. Yeah. So discontented. You know, every time there's a new shoes coming out, some people rush to the store. Maybe I can run faster if I buy that. You're not going to run faster because you buy the shoes. You gotta be kidding me. You know, oh, these shoes will help me jump higher. That is a lie. You know, no shoes will make you jump higher. It's not going to happen that way. You see? But we always find excuses, so we are no longer happy. If you are, well, when I was watching basketball, you know what the shoes of the basketball players were? Magic Johnson to begin with. The Converse, the canvas. Yung katsa. That was our shoes. That was the shoes of Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Will Chamberlain. That was their shoes. There's no Air Jordan or nothing. That's the shoes of Bill Russell, which for me is the number one player in NBA history, not Michael Jordan. Bill Russell has 9 rings. A lot of them he won as a playing coach for the Boston Celtics. Playing, I think at 6'10 or 6'11 center for Boston Celtics, playing against Will Chamberlain at 7'1" or 7'2". They could never win against Bill Russell. So for me, among the top 50, he's number 1, Bill Russell. Yeah. He doesn't have those shoes. What people, well, we don't have those shoes. It's just, people still get injured with those fancy shoes. What I'm saying is stop making excuses. Be content. I should be very happy that I have 5 kids, 4 boys, and thank God only 1 girl, you know. I think I would not be able to handle another one. Thank God for that. I'm very thankful to God that I have Anna as my wife. Sometimes I wonder, can you imagine if my wife is a pushover? Boy, I'll be worse. Because she pushes back. If I am married to a weak woman, I pity that woman. Yeah. Thank God that she has the courage, even though she's a lot shorter than me, to act tough. If I'm married to a weak woman, poor woman, you know, you should be content, whatever your calling is. Don't ever fall into the trap that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Don't fall into the trap. However the Lord found you, be content with that. Right now, what is amazing is some Americans are showing discontent with being American. That is just... Now, I follow a lot Asian movies more than Western movies. And I have been following that since I was in high school. You know, the dialogues when I was in high school is very different from the dialogues. Right now, the Chinese movies, a lot of pride. A lot of pride. You know, I was watching one war movie, Chinese movie, of course, it's subtitled. And one of the line is, "We will show them that nobody hurts a Chinese." Oh, see, that's a line of the Romans. The Romans used to say that nobody will hurt a Roman citizen. That's why there's the fear of the wrath of the Roman Empire. You don't hurt a Roman citizen. That's why when Paul said, "Oh, is it legal now for you to punish a Roman citizen without trial?" The captain of the guards got concerned. And then there was a time wherein you don't touch an American. Because, or you will have the full might of the American armed forces. You don't hurt an American. Now the Chinese are, you don't hurt it. We will show them how powerful the Chinese are. That's what they say. There's a changing, and then you look at the news right now. I don't know why Americans are very unhappy with America. Then go live in Africa or something, you know, where they do tribal cleansing. See what happened. Go live in China. See what happened. Why? Because we have been sold lies. Paul does not accept that kind of argument. He believes that in the divine call, this thought should break down. Don't be insecure if you are uncircumcised. Don't feel superior if you are circumcised. Don't be insecure if you are Filipino. Don't feel superior either if you are American. Yeah. By the way, I'm saying that not because I'm here. I used to check sermons of pastors in the Philippines when they preach. When Pastor Samuel started preaching, we check sermons. I'm the one in charge of that. We have a missionary, graduate of Rhema Bible Training Center. So he was going to preach in one of our services. My pastor cannot check his outlines. So I said, "Jose, you're in charge." So I checked their outlines. And I was reading this American minister. He wrote this outline. And I teach homiletics. I teach pastors how to preach. When I read his outline, it just made me upset. I don't know where he was going. So I put red ink all over the outline. And I said, "This is shotgun preaching. I don't know what you're trying to hit." I put that note, you know. And I was in my office, and he came rushing to my office. The American is shorter than me. He came rushing to my office, and he took the outline and said, "Pastor said you checked my outline." I said, "Yes, I did." He asked me to do so. I said, "I checked the outlines here." And he slammed the outline on my table. He said, "Do you know how many hours I spent meditating on that word?" I said, "Well, I'm not questioning how many hours." "Then why did you say shotgun preaching?" And I look at him and says, "Because it is." And he said, "You better change the way you make comments on the sermon outlines. You are not God." I said, "I'm not." But I said, "I teach homiletics here. That's my job." By the time I cannot turn red because my color is dark. You will not see it. You know? So I was just really furious. But the problem is when I get very upset like that, my eyes turn reddish. I'm not turning into a vampire or something like that. It's just the way it is. I became very upset. I said, "I'm not going to change any comment on that thing." I said, "Straighten the way you write your outline." And I began to raise my voice. But, you know, you need to have self-control. So I decided to rush out of my office. And I was furious. And I went to the bathroom and washed my face just to cool down. That's what I do. I cool down and wash my face. I never realized my pastor was looking at me the whole time. Yeah. And he called me the following day. He said, I have never seen you get upset. And he said, you know, Jose, he's white. I said, yes. He said, thank you for standing your ground, but he told me this. He said, if you ever come to fight me one day, and he told me this, I'm going to smash you like a cockroach. Now, it's time for Filipinos to back off when they are told like that. I look at him and I says, I'd have no plans to fight you. But I said, if I fight you one day, I said, I don't lose. That's what came out of my lips. Now, this is a big American pastor. I said, I don't lose. But I said it with a smile. Why? Because we should not be experiencing discontent because of how we were born. All of us are in faith, guys. Our security is in Jesus Christ now. Our call. It's not in the color of our skin. It's not how much money we have in the bank. It's not how much education we have. You have a call. Be content with that. Do not look on the other side of the fence. Do not look on the other wall that others are building. That is not your wall. Build a wall that you have been assigned. That's where your security is. But if you try to be what others are, you're going to be frustrated for the rest of your life. You know, that's why I was in Pampanga and this worship leader, Darlene Sheck, was very popular during the time. And I happened to see one of her videos, and this boy, this man, was leading worship like Darlene Sheck. And there's nothing worse than a man acting like a woman, you know. So he was leading worship. Mayroong kumpas si Darlene Sheck na ginagaya niya. Hindi na ako makapag-worship. Talagang sabi ko, ano itong lalaking to? So I stood up to preach. And that's the first thing that came out of my lips. I said, I don't understand why you guys are trying to become Darlene Sheck. I said, you know. And the guy never led worship again while I was there. Because of the kind of insecurity that we, and discontent with ourselves. Listen, whatever God told us to do, we will accomplish it. If the vision is true, that we're going to build a blessing center in the Philippines, that will be built. I hope you guys have learned your lesson. This is our second building, and we're looking forward to a third building here. But it can be done. A lot of the things that we have done here, some people say, cannot be done. We're able to do it. We should find contentment. Now, can you imagine, I bring a missions team. You know, I find a need to have Hansel more with me. Because some of the worship leading that I see now in the Philippines, it just upset me. A lot of noise. I think Hansel one time was leading worship, and he was just playing with his little guitar. He's got this little guitar that here's this big guy with a little guitar, you know. And he's singing. And some of the comments said, is that how you guys worship at lunch? I said, yeah, there's drum, because I said we have the space. But I said, that's basically how we lead the worship. And they were blessed. No fanfare. All it is because we refuse to compete with what others are doing. You know, you have your own call. You be happy with that. Then if you live according to your own call and you're happy with that, then you will not say that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. And so we should not be saying, well, those people are blessed because they're Jewish, they're children of Abraham. We are too. No, we are yet to discover the mode of thinking that they have, hard to study because you're probing into the human mind and the human heart. But boy, I would love to learn how they got that kind of confidence. Can you imagine this tiny little nation? Most of the world hates them. Tried to annihilate them several times. Kept on surviving. And the moment they survive, they become the best. There must be something. The blessing, of course, is everything there is, but there must be something in the way they think. Oh, I would love to tap into that. And anything they touch just prospers. Just anything they touch, it just prospers. That is an amazing thing, you know. And that blessing of Abraham is now with us. It belongs to us. So we cannot say, like for example, with this building project we have, oh, if I only have $1 million, I will give. Don't think, that's a wrong way of thinking. What God is asking us to give is what is in our hands, and He will bless it. Don't say, oh, if I receive a bonus, I will give. Forget it. God is not asking for what you don't have. It's what you have in your hands. That's what God can bless. Not what you don't have, but what you have. Well, Pastor said I can only give $1. You know, the rejoicing that my wife has, last Friday, I think, somebody, because of the fundraising, my wife was showing me a check for, was it $100? And she was very happy. She said, oh, sweetheart, we can really do it, she said. I said, do what? Oh, build a building in the Philippines. I said, why? It started already. I said, what started? Somebody gave me an envelope. She said, $100 per foot, per season. And then somebody told, you know, that's the same rejoicing that she displayed when I got a check for $20,000. Yeah. That's the same rejoicing that she displayed when we received a check for $5,000. And it's the same rejoicing that she displayed when somebody gave $50 cash this morning for building. Yeah. Because it's not the amount. It's what you have in your hands that God can bless. But don't say, well, if I'm only a businessman, then perhaps I can do this. Well, listen, there were no businessmen in the wilderness when they built the tabernacle. None. In fact, everybody was jobless. Everybody was jobless in the wilderness. And they built the tabernacle with what they had. The other thing that we can include here, marital status. There are some other passages, but I don't want to teach this again next week. But your marital status shouldn't affect your call. That's why Paul said, you know, if you are married, stay married. People say, well, if I'm just married, I should be able to do more. Not necessarily. Paul did a lot without being married. We have to be content with our call, whatever our call is. If everybody will just be content, then there will be no division. I will not desire, you know. I have no desire to be a worship leader. I have no desire to be a choir director. I desire to teach the word. That's it. Now, I enjoy listening to people sing. I enjoy watching people dance before the Lord. But do I ever covet dancing? No. My knees cannot take it. When I was watching the three youngsters did a semi-dry run for the harvest before we went for missions, those three girls were phenomenal. Their talents exceed their parents at that age. Now, this one boy, yeah. I forgot the one boy. Oh, I thought three girls. Oh, mistake. Thank God the other boy left, you know. But there are two boys, two girls and one boy. I was looking at it, I said, man, this. You know, after I watched that and then the reports I got, I never developed a desire to act. I never said, I'm going to act. No, I have no desire whatsoever. You act, I watch. That's not my call. And that's where our contentment should be. Amen? Let's all stand.